Hello, and welcome to Royale Without Cheese, our bi-weekly podcast in which we discuss both the classic and the unknown of art and popular cinema from the then and now. We are your hosts, me, Leonardo Miranda, Tomás, Ferreira,
Hey.
and Miguel Aido.
Hello there.
Today we talk about The Strange Case of Angelica, but before any ados, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or simply give us a little like. The Strange Case of Angelica is a 2010 Portuguese drama film directed by Manoel de Oliveira. At the time, it entered the uncertain regard section of the Cannes Film Festival. The idea for the film was originally conceived in 1946, with Oliveira actually finishing the script in 1952 and then updating it with modern elements. The story follows Isaac, a photographer who is urgently called in by a wealthy family to take the last portrait of Angelica, a young woman who died after a wedding and for whom he falls in love. But the question remains, did Angelica's beyond the grave charm actually find its way to Royale Without Cheese? Fellas, dig in.
Let's dig in, shall we? Let's crack the rocks
Crack the
and
rock.
go deep into the realm of Manoel de Oliveira. So fellas, what
70
do we
years,
think?
70 years to make
Yeah,
a
that's
film
a
from
long
script to production.
It's quite something. I wonder why it took so much. What was the
He
voyage?
was waiting to have a grandkid.
For
that
have a
would be
grandkid?
The protagonist.
Yeah, that was exactly Ricardo Trepa. Exactly, I was thinking of the same thing.
Yeah, good actor actually. But I didn't
Yeah.
know him
Oh,
or
yeah.
that he was his grandson, but yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I knew it.
It pretty
for a
much only
while.
works with him, as far as
Yeah.
like in the credits of the
He did
that he did.
fifth. He did the Fifth Empire, or Quinto Império in
Yeah.
Portuguese. That's when I first saw him. Actually, when I was a little kid, like primary school age, I first saw him in Oliveira movie, like at night, and I saw him,
As
and I
one
was
does.
like, who is this guy? I was just mesmerized. You know, sometimes I think you need to have a child's brain to just go with the flow of these movies, because part of me was mesmerized with Dom Sebastião in a way, looking at him in that movie, because they act so strangely. But anyway, I digress. Good actor.
He's a pretty good actor. Yeah.
But he is good. He is
Okay.
good.
Yeah. I mean,
I like him.
guess-
it's a different
I
register.
I'm being playful here, but I cannot say that he is bad. I don't mean to say that, because what is present in the film is more of style of acting, not really indicative of bad acting. So I can't say that. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a style to everyone's acting, I think. So I think he
Oh, yeah.
fits right into everything.
Yeah, sure. But in the sense that in this film, the style of acting that you have is very much akin to like Bresson, you know, in the sense of, you know, what I mean to say is that in this, what we are presented with in the film is that the style of acting and is not so much in the sense of, okay, yes, there's a principle that everyone has their own style, everyone has their own method, but what we see in the film, by and large, is this unified thing of theatrical acting, very much akin, I would say, to what Bresson describes as the actor has a model, right? It's not really realistic or elusive to real life. I mean, not that, you know, acting is entirely elusive to real life, but, you know, in a realistic tone. And so it's like Leo said some days ago when picking up this movie, you know, it's like you either go with it or we don't go with it. And for sure, this is a movie of Manoel Oliveira where that I've been most receptive to. It has a good runtime, and also it's an interesting concept. But the acting, yet again, is very difficult for me to kind of buy into it. So just kind of going back to that point. No, it's not bad acting. It's just a choice. I mean, it's very, you know, I see the movie and you can feel like Manoel Oliveira persists in this style of acting. It's his choice. He must have some reasoning. It's not like, well, I don't feel attracted to it, you know. So throughout the film, I'm constantly asking myself, well, what is the interest in this kind of way of presenting things, presenting a reality in these characters? Because it's very distancing. I cannot relate with what's going on. I was towards the end of the film, actually, I came to this conclusion by the end of the movie, was that earlier in the week I saw this film that I fell in love with, which was La Chimera. I didn't stop talking about it the whole week. And I thought by the end of The Strange Case of Angelica, La Chimera, despite being a film that has a different style, it's not the theatricality that we see in The Strange Case at all, but it is not conventional cinema, and it's a case of art house cinema, so to speak. So it's closer to Manoel de Oliveira than anything else in the mainstream would be. So I think Lucky Mare does a better job than at the concept that the Strange Case of Angelica tries to arrive than the Strange Case of Angelica, because it achieved this balance. And I'll develop on this further, but
I haven't seen the film, so it's like I can't even.
True. So it's
argue.
a bit, yeah. This is just, I thought it was an interesting thing to bring on just on my end, but yeah.
But I actually don't really think it's that theatrical, the acting. I think
you don't think it's that theatrical. By God, explain yourself.
No, it's just there's definitely a style to it. Obviously, I think it's very particular. Honestly, I mean, theatrical style of acting. I don't know. I would have needed to see like really intense screams and the sort of way that actors speak in theater, which is very in awareness of a crowd that is present. And here I didn't exactly feel that. I just felt like they had very specific instructions, which I don't know what they were, and they followed them. But I don't think it's necessarily it's something. It's like a bit surreal often. I wouldn't exactly categorize it as theatrical.
I mean, it
but it is
on,
something.
Yeah. What do we mean by theatrical? But it is artificial or unnatural, I suppose, because the way they read their lines, they stick very clearly, very firmly to the script, it seems, and the way the lines are delivered and structured, it's in ways that like no one really speaks like that, and that you're feeling that in certain expressions that the people use, in the way that they communicate certain feeling. It's just feels very written, and so I guess that also lends itself to feeling a bit theatrical, but yeah, it didn't bother me. I don't know, it's the second time I'm watching it.
Not only for me, I mean, not only did it not bother me, I actually thought it was kind of hilarious at times. Like
At
for
times,
example, when Isaac is going out after after he's called back again with for the pictures, and then he goes to the graveyard sort of gates, and he screams Angelica, and then Isabel Huth comes, like the maid, and she just stands there for a while behind him, and then kind of screams, "Mr. Isaac!" Like she waits a few seconds and then scream. It's like it's almost a frightening attempt. But I mean, I found it very funny because it's almost like the film in certain moments stops and just lets us be in the same mindset as Isaac, and then just resumes and she screams the line, and I find it particular these moments.
Well, I wouldn't describe the theatricality aspect as something that I would bind to the idea of people screaming like in theater. I mean, particularly not in film, because that would be completely distant from film.
I don't know exactly mean scream, like the way they speak and how they project the words.
Yeah,
I mean,
but this is
different.
you have very clear examples in the film of what I mean by theatricality. Nobody wakes up in the middle of the night or in the middle of a dinner and says things as if he was in a monologue to the audience. He says stuff like, Angelica, Marta, cum. I've seen this in theater. It's the exact attitude lifted from theater. So,
but actually,
that's what
to me, it's actually more like a piece of literature. Like Leo said, it seems written, and at least to me, it linked more towards something written. Like that's the line of the narrator in his head, and we're seeing what he's saying or thinking, rather than exactly a theater monologue. At least to me, every time there's those moments, I link more to something written rather than theater per se.
But this is all to say that one way or another, there's an impediment of me connecting with the character and his tribulations. That's kind of the main point of what I say with the theatricality of it, or the quaint style of acting. Did you connect with the character? That's kind of one of the questions I want to pose to you. What did you feel regarding what was going on, the ideas in the film, both visually and what the character was going through? Did you actually legitimately felt something for the situation that was going on with the character?
Since the film goes so much in this comedy, surrealism, direction. It's kind of
Oh,
hard
so you do
to.
think it's comedy? You think it's an actual comedy?
No, it's not an actual comedy, but it has plenty of comedy moments, I think. But I wouldn't
But they're
describe
not
it as a
intentional, are
comedy.
they? It's
No,
not
they
like
are
intentional.
intentional.
Some of them are clearly
You think
Yeah.
they're intentional?
Of course they are. A lot
Which
of them
ones are intentional? Which ones are intentional?
For example, almost all the scenes with the homeless man begging for money.
Exactly.
That scene I described with the maid.
How is that
where
that comic?
I don't know. I can't distinguish in a film of Manoel de Oliveira, you know, because everything
That's
has the
your
same taste.
prejudice against the old man.
It's not a prejudice. It's every other scene tastes the same, so I cannot tell what is drama.
You know, the beggar comes in, asks for money, and then he comes back again, and he's like, "I already gave you money." It's like that's.
I know, I get it, but
that's
it's
funny.
not.
Like,
that's funny.
you know, it's not. Of course,
and that scene
it's
I
not
was
Family Guy
describing-
compilation funny, Tomás. But
No, it's not. Of course not.
I know.
But I'm not saying that comedy needs to be that.
Of course,
okay?
of course. I'm being.
But for example, that scene I described, that is at the gate, and you have the maid appear, and she kind of scream. She waits a few seconds to then scream his name. That was funny. But then afterwards, the beggar comes again, kind of appears from
he
the right
jumps onto the frame,
and I don't think he even speaks at that time. But he's just, you know, he's coming to beg again, and I mean, that was clearly funny and intentional.
Yeah, but it's not. Obviously, it's not. The main goal of the film is not to make you laugh.
Yeah. But what I was trying to say is, because the film has that dimension with the surrealism as well, for me it's not a full drama like other films we might see, where it's much more easy to connect with characters. So, you know, it's a film that gets really dictated by style, I think, here. And so I do agree that it's kind of hard to fully connect with the character. But I also don't think I didn't completely connect with him. I think you can connect with him a little bit and understand what he's going through. And even though it's not a full connection, like a full, you know, edge of your seat drama or something, you do understand, you know, his trajectory emotionally. And I think it's interesting what's happening here and the story itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like I was, you know, crying at the
Over
end
the
or
moon.
something. I mean, yeah, or
Oh, of
completely
course.
engaged emotionally. Just
I wasn't completely crying at the end, for example, Lucky Mara, but for example, that movie, I use it as a sort of paradigm because I thought it struck the right balance between the allegorical character that serves to represent this idea of flirting with death in a way, and the movie, to its credit, you know, the thing about the movie, the Strange Case of Angelica, didn't click for me, but the concept that it has is an attractive one, and that's why, in principle, I thought maybe this is a film that I'll like. But in execution, there were so many scenes that I understood what he was doing, what he wanted from them, with kind of the photographer looking constantly to dig into this world of death within the world of the living. When he kind of goes into that kind of farm and he photographs the farmers as they dig, there seems to be this kind of flirtation of cinema with death in how cinema expresses death, always connected to dirt, to smoke, to the land, to the earth, to flowers, to all of that. And we saw that back in Taste of Cherry. And we see that again in Lucky Mary. You know, these elements seem to come back. We pick up these very specific things. And the thing is,
this double bill for Tomás.
But the thing is, I just felt there was no. I'm coming back around to kind of. It's recently we've been commenting about a couple of movies that are still to come out in terms of releases, and I'm gonna come back around to some of the ideas that we have been discussing up until now, which is, I think this is a movie where, in a very specific scene that tells it, the character doesn't really change. Although they seem to say that he changes. There's a dinner scene with the landlady, and the guests or the people that she has at her house, where she says, "Oh, he's becoming an enigma and whatnot. So different. He takes so many more photos of those rude man farmers, the way they look. I mean,
are you talking about the dinner scene with all the characters, like the four?
Yeah, the engineer. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
I actually really like that scene. Really. I mean, yeah, I have my reasons for it. I can explain, but yeah, go on.
The scene is interesting for me. it has two aspects. The one is interesting, the other I don't know. On the other hand, what I was aiming to say right now, the one aspect is the fact that they are kind of feeding us this idea that he changed so much and that he's so different and affected by the death of Angelica, kind of touched by this voluptuous image of death. And kind of the concept that I like in the film is this idea that death has a sacrifice where you just exclude yourself, delete yourself, delete your life, delete everything in favor to pass that great beyond that barrier there is death to the unknown, where somehow in cinema, in these movies like La Chimera or in this film, The Strange Case of Angelica, death is sort of a barrier beyond which there's a true form of love, where you sacrifice yourself to give yourself to the other. Somehow, I always found that idea super interesting, and that's one of the reasons why I love Dracula in Bram Stoker's Dracula. I just love that kind of just gothic romance atmosphere and the idea of death mingled with love and of sacrifice for something greater and abstract in yourself that will demand you losing your own life or a part of yourself or physical self. That is always so interesting to me, and that to me was so beautifully done in La Chimera. Here I was just kind of distanced from it all. I can't understand this dude, and they keep saying that he changed. For example, La Chimera, you actually see him change. And note that La Chimera, the more I say La Chimera, the more I sound like a pretentious teacher from
the Chimera
film school. But La Chimera, in that movie, the character, and for the most part, the atmosphere is very cold too. It's not like it's a journey where it's super emotional and you're crying at the edge of your seat, and it's a drama at the edge of your seat, like I'm going to coin that term that Mike used. But it achieves a great balance between the idea of that coldness, that distance, that minimalism, and making a character transform, evolve somehow. You see a change. Here is like, oh, he has become this enigma and whatnot. But the character of the photographer in The Strange Case, I don't see how he has become any different. It's the same symptom.
No, but
yeah. I'm just gonna end one thing.
Sure.
It's just like it's just the same symptom that I felt with Maria Brown. That's how I said I was going to come back to that. Same symptom. I don't feel he changes all that much. I don't understand that. I see the impact, sure, but what comes from here? He was always kind of a loner since the beginning. The other aspect of the scene that I actually like is the fact that everybody sees different things in a photograph, which I thought was interesting from the part of the landlady, that she sees the rudeness in the farmers while he sees perhaps something of beauty.
I think it's two different things, because in Maria Brown, yes, that I think that's a more valid argument, because you're talking about her change throughout the film, and in here, the sort of event that changes Isaac basically happens at the beginning, because we don't really see him until the point that he's asked to go to photograph her, and then he goes, and it's the moment where she wakes up in the photograph that really sparks everything. So there's really not a pre-Isaac for us to compare with, because we go immediately into the event that changed them. And so I think the characters say that from their own perspective, as characters that have been living with this character for a while, and so can obviously say these things, and it makes sense within the film. Of course, us as audience, we don't really see that change, because we're brought to the film at that moment. But I think that's fine. Justina will say that he changed because she's her landlady, and so that makes sense. But and you have to believe that he's changing, because this has been a really strange event in his life, and you can see from all his reactions when she wakes up and everything really afterwards. You may not see comparatively specifically how he's changed, but you can tell it has impacted him, and so you do. At least I believe that he was different, even if I wasn't exactly seeing how. But
yeah, I agree with that. But like, to the question of like, do I connect deeply to the main character? It's not really that type of film for me. It's not how I connected to the film.
It's not so much connect deeply, but sympathize with him. Find the film felt so, empty for me. Like, visually speaking, it's a beautiful film, yes, but I don't know. I have nothing to attach myself to in terms of just the word exploration. I'm seeing this guy, and okay,
But I mean, style-wise, aren't you like attracted? Because it was one of the strongest points for me. It was just seeing how everything articulates within this specific acting and the beautifulness of the images and the strangeness of the idea of the plot. I mean, for me, everything kind of clicks. It's not really this sort of immense and contrived script, and yet it still engages you, I think. And that for me is pretty impressive. Along with everything visually that does that and the acting, to me that's kind of what really matters in this film is how style-wise, how everything articulates and pulls you in. And with the acting, rather than being or thinking it was strange, I was actually kind of curious to see why they were acting this way and how they were expressing that strangeness in different scenes. So, and it's part of why I also like that dinner scene because it's just so mundane. They talk about such uninteresting, boring stuff, but it keeps you engaged, I think, because you kind of wait to see where this is going, and then it does go somewhere because they end up talking about atoms and the spirits, and then that kind of makes a revelation for Isaac. So I thought it was really well built.
That was actually a very interesting part of the conversation. How the scientific nature of the conversation towards the end blends in with this sense of mysticism that has lived for so long inside the mind and body of Isaac. I think he gives him a sense of hope. Something clicks in his head. That was actually one of the moments that I appreciated because I could see his thought process against something. Because most of the time I kind of see him just waking up, had a bad dream, then he quotes me Jose Ortega or something, and I'm like, okay, oh, you're going back to sleep now. All right. so that was it. Okay. So I don't know. So that was interesting to me, and yeah, and then it's back to being empty again. But what else? It's like I'm fishing for nuggets that I don't find a lot of moments that I'm
what I
captivated by
like,
the film. That is an example.
like what
Another
I
example
love.
that I liked. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I just want to explain
Sorry.
why I do like the film, even though I don't care that much about the main character, or I don't connect that deeply to the character the same way as you don't, because he is a bit of like a vessel for ideas, or more of a, he's doing
Yeah,
things
that's
and
kind of
he's
what I'm
reacting
realizing.
to a surreal event, but he's not a deeply explored character. But I think the film has such a, as Miguel was saying, the style and the moods is so particular that you want to follow it. And then there's the strangeness of it all, of how, in terms of where the time of the film, it exists in a timeless place, in a type of, it's the past but it's the present. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I love that idea, and so I love it from the first shot where all the contradictions are immediate. Someone comes in a car in this like seemingly old street, but there's a contemporary car, and they're looking for a photographer, which is like a need that you don't really like in current day. That's not really something you do.
Yeah.
You don't go somewhere, we need a photographer immediately. It's like, just, you have a camera, you
Yeah.
have a phone or whatever.
Yeah. Then again, 2010.
I
Just
mean,
to kind
still
of
in
reaffirm this.
2010
No,
you
no,
had
I'm not
like
saying by opposition. I'm confirming it's 2010. It's modern times. Just remember.
immediately I'm more thinking about cinema itself, and how like cinema is a way to capture so many different times and keep reliving them across so many different times as well. And so, like, for me, and then I think about Manoel de Oliveira. So this is like the way I immediately connected to it, which is he's so old, he's such an old man. He's
Mm-hmm.
like worked across so many different decades, that to him that's what cinema also is. It's like he's lived across so many things that one film could encapsulate so many different times. And then the ideas of the film of taking someone's picture, and even though they're dead, in the picture there's motion and there's life. And again, that's like capturing a life with cinema, and I think that's just so beautiful. And I think in those first 20 minutes of the film, it communicates that idea so well, that then whatever shortcomings the film may have narratively or emotionally, I'm completely captured by it. And I find it so captivating to watch. And then when he goes to take photos of those guys, taking the farmers, I suppose, with Justina telling, and no one works like that anymore. Why do you even want to capture that? There's machines for everything. So, the film is very obviously communicating its ideas of capturing something that is dead or something that is old and decrepit or that no one does anymore, and making it eternal through a visual medium, which is a photography, and Angelica becomes sort of that symbol, and it's very mysterious with him dying at the end, essentially, like becoming one with Angelica. Like, what does that communicate? Like, what is he trying to say? Is it impossible, or is it's like you become so obsessed with art, or so obsessed with whatever it is that obsesses you that it kills you, essentially. I think it's just so captivating to watch. And again, it's like 90-minute film from Manoel de Oliveira, so it's like you gotta appreciate that.
Yes. And it can also communicate, the power of his love for Angelica, even though he didn't know her. I mean, he couldn't be alive if not with her, which is also nice thought. And I kind of agree with you in that sense that we're also kind of paying an homage to cinema itself, because I mean, she comes alive in a photograph, which is interesting because that's kind of what cinema does. It's a series of photographs, but then they all make something move and become alive. So in a sense, it's also kind of a metaphor for what cinema actually is, seeing motion in something still.
Yeah, and I saw, as I was watching the film, I saw someone, like, there was a quote from some filmmaker. Sounds like something Cronenberg maybe said. Like, every film is sort of like a cemetery, especially the older the film is, because you're watching people who are dead, but they're alive still, but they're dead, and you're going there to watch that. I was watching the film thinking of that, and I thought it's a very strange idea that I find very beautiful.
It's true,
because it is true. In the film has this style. There's very reminiscent because of the camera placements of silent films. It's very still, and it's clearly from like the fourth wall, let's say, most of the times. So there's that sense of the actors performing for the camera, or performing very clearly in relation to the camera, in ways that in modern cinema maybe there's more of a hiding of that performing of for the camera. And so when Isaac enters a room and then he turns like in a way that's clearly to show himself to the camera, which I also think is something that makes the film difficult, because it's employing a style that's not really used. And then the acting, it's also a style that is taken, as we were saying, to literature and theater. So again, another obstacle in the way of making the film more like appealing to a broader audience, I suppose. And then the idea, and even the special effects, it looks a little goofy sometimes, maybe. So there's all these things that
actually, I thought that the dream sequence was very beautiful. I thought,
Ryan
is this
Anderson stole that from Manoel de Oliveira for about endlessness, when they are sort of
Oh, really?
in the sky.
I mean,
floating.
You would,
yeah.
we don't know much, but yeah, it's very similar now that I think about it.
I don't know. It's just because the way Isaac looks when they're like flat, and he's like with his mouth open, smile very.
Yes.
Oh my god! So just tell him to smile without opening his mouth. I think it looks
yeah.
it looks so goofy to me. But then when it cuts to like the god's eye view of the camera floating above the fields, it's very, very beautiful.
Oh yeah, that was very beautiful. But was that the moment where you said that you're probably not going to like that sequence? Because I thought you said it was a VFX sequence that you said I was not going to like. A dream sequence.
Yeah, probably that one. I mean, it's just because it's a little.
Because the mouth thing.
Yeah, I mean, I said you because it was also that to me. It was a bit like
right.
I'm not sure, but on the second watch, it didn't bother me as much. Actually,
I'll be fair. I was looking at it, and I was with the mindset of the only thing I would change would be close your mouth, because everything else I'm loving this, kind of dream sequence with the flatness of it. It looks unreal, and it marries very well with the idea of the dream logic. And I love the aerial shot of the fields. That was very interesting. But to be fair, your words conquered me on the film. Well, congratulations, very well. I think that sometimes a movie doesn't click with you, and you're not in the mood. I think mainly is the fact that the theatricality of the acting, especially in my own language, is something that, thinking back to the movie, there are a lot of movies. I think of the movie more in terms of moments. There are moments that I really find have a visual charm in the film, like you and Mike were describing. I really like when he goes out, but commenting first, like the idea of the contrast between the modernity and the old world is very interesting in the film, right down to the very first idea of the fixed shot of the little city or village, let's say, against a nearby river. This wide shot of it in its like wide existence in the middle of this kind of nowhere, remote rural place, and then you know that this somewhat advanced place, this village, in reverse shot has these fields, this farming field with the vineyards and whatnot. So you have the coexistence of this kind of the ancient world, the old world, and modernity. Yeah, that's interesting. I really like when he's just using the camera to kind of dig in to find life, contact with the world of death in some way within the world of the living. That's what he's doing when he goes and takes those pictures of the farmers kind of digging against the earth. There is always this coexistence of growth of the day of life against destruction somehow, because that's what the landlady sees. That's what I was meaning by an image can translate very different perspectives. He sees, I don't know, motion, energy, life. She sees rudeness, death, morbidness. When you actually see the photos, this is one of the most beautiful shots in the film, on that hangar thing that he has kind of together, and creates in a very literal frame by frame situation, as if to say this is the literal meaning of cinema, frames, static frames put together. It creates this film within a film almost, of this man kind of hitting Angelica, this very still life, that person in other photos. It's, those photos of her dead in that little whatever sofa, are intercutted. Chaise longue. I don't know how you say it in
I suppose. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess. É um canapé, acho, em português.
Long chair.
But the long chair. Essas fotografias dela estão intercutted com essas outras fotografias que ele tirou desses farmers, and to create this very contrasting idea that is very interesting in the film. They're kind of digging into the voluptuousness that is in her kind of still body. And there's also another moment I really like. There's just this very still white frame of him taking pictures of Angelica for the first and last time on that long chair, and in the background you have the whole family looking at him doing it, and it's super uncomfortable. And it was a very effective shot when I saw it the first time, because he's essentially being an artist there, and there's something of very strangely private but also very public in that moment, where he's kind of, like he very literally says, but if he didn't say it, you could actually see it, taking the best angle. What's the best angle? What's the best position? And it's not like it's an object. It's a human being that's dead, and the family is watching him doing his thing. It feels like we are witnessing something very private in a very public space, almost like he's making love with Angelica in that moment. So it shouldn't happen, and I'm uncomfortable by it, but also very intrigued. So this is what I mean to say. That was a moment that was very poignant in its ideas for me.
Isn't it interesting that one of the maids goes to get like a stronger light bulb, and she finds it? I mean, I thought that was so like,
oh yeah,
it's such a weird request, but like she doesn't even question that she can
request.
do it. She just go gets one. And I thought, because it's not that easy
all the time.
It's not that easy to find a stronger light bulb than whatever you have.
That's the thing, because like you probably have other light bulbs, but you don't know. I don't know if they're stronger. It's like they're probably the same, because I buy them in bulk and then I have to replace them over time.
I thought it was, for me that was funny. Such a weird request that she just accepts it very comfortably.
She probably is doing it all the time. She's the one made who has that responsibility. Change for a stronger light bulb. Okay, got it.
So, perfect.
This is what I was hired to do.
My one skill.
As long as we're talking about cool scenes, I mean, I don't know, you guys remember the end of The Fabelmans, where you have David Lynch, saying that, horizon shots are good. If they are like on the top third, on the bottom third, and if they are in the middle, they're boring.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was reminded of that because in the sort of church scene where she's well, where you have all the people and you have Angelica in the middle on her coffin, sort of elevated. It's a very interesting framing because it literally she's literally in the middle of the frame, and so like I mean, if you were to quote, who does Lynch portray? It's for
John
it's-
Ford.
John Ford.
Yeah, John Ford. I mean, if we were to take that literally, it'd be a crappy shot because she's right in the middle, and the
I
Isaac
mean, that's not a
appears.
landscape. That's not an horizon.
No, but I mean, it kind of puts her in a sort of horizon. I know it's not literally landscape, but I mean, it's an interesting shot because it's kind of put down, and you have the people in the bottom frame, and you have Isaac in the top frame. And I mean, yeah, it's not a landscape, it's true, but I mean, I thought it was a very interesting framing because the camera is pointing down, and you have everything to go wrong with a shot like that, but somehow it works. And also, what do you guys think about those sort of trucks, those three trucks that appear? I don't know if you remember. Yeah, I mean, it's when Isaac is in his apartment and he goes to the
Oh,
balcony
yeah.
and he sees
No, I
like
know, yeah.
a series of trucks passing by and
Because
they're all the
we don't
same.
see
like those
we don't see the
shots
trucks.
from up.
Do we see the trucks? We don't see the trucks.
No, you see, there's
You
one
see
shot
them
where you
drive
see
by.
a line of
We
trucks
do?
passing.
I remember them
then-
more like an oral thing, like you
Yes,
hear
but
it, but you
and
don't see it.
later you hear them, but in the I know there's definitely a shot of them going by.
Right.
So when he's in the balcony, right?
Yeah, in the balcony, and so misplaced. I don't know. I mean, it's so strange. And then he
Yeah.
comes back. He hears them again. It's
I
like
feel like it's a reminder, like this is modernity, this is current day.
To me, very simply speaking, to me was always kind of an idea of a signal of the existence of the outside world. We pass so much time within a sort of inner world with him. And despite being, very cold towards the protagonist, because it's not a traditional way of relating with him emotionally, we do spend very much within his experience of things that suddenly when you hear the truck, it's always almost like the outside world is teasing him to bring him back to life, to remember there's something, beyond this little room that he is in. We always see him in these very kind of, darkly lit rooms that I think this serves as a constant reminding of what he's, letting pass by, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But can be interpreted in many ways. That was how I felt it.
Yeah, I also thought it was funny, like when the moment where like Angelica keeps popping up and then disappears and then pops up.
Yeah.
I don't know if intentional or not, but it is funny.
Oh yeah, no, I most of the things I don't know. I look at it and I didn't thought it was it is funny to me, but I think it's not intentional. Of course, a lot of things are funny to me, but I don't think. For example, I think it's super funny that when the bird dies, and he comes for the first time into the room, and she says, "Olhe, morreu, look at that." He's like, "Como? O pasarito?" Oh, he goes away and he flees.
Yeah, I get it.
It's super funny. I crack me up. Like just ridiculous. The most ridiculous acting I've ever seen in my life. Like I was looking at it, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I get that. I think it's endearing. I like it. But I get, like, I don't know if that's supposed to, like, maybe if I said that I find that funny, the director would say, but no, how dare you? Like, that's insulting to me. But I do think it's kind of funny. I also think it's funny when they're talking about the bridge and the project not moving forward. Like, the doctor is so shocked. He's like, just speak, man. Say it. Yeah. Well, the project is not going ahead. Why are you so shocked? Why is it so like shocked? He's so. Yeah. I love that, but it's funny. But I like it, but it isn't. I don't know. Is it a good performance or not? I don't think it's difficult to argue in these terms because
the fact that I find those things funny, because I do see the funny thing. I laugh at more than one thing in this movie. Particularly, I laughed at the bird thing. Doesn't it say something about it to some degree or level that I did not intend this to be funny, and yet it's being funny? And
but you don't know if it's not intended to be funny, and I think it is.
But I'm 90% sure, 80%. I would say, I don't know.
Even if it's unintentional, like to me, it makes the film like still interesting. Like it makes the
Okay.
even more enjoyable to us. Like
Right.
I can laugh. Oh, awesome! I love laughing.
No, of course, but that's an interesting question. Then it brings an interesting thing.
Yeah.
So if the
It
director
is.
never intended you to laugh, and you're laughing at it, and he, like you said, that imaginary hypothetical version of the director being in front of you,
Nah, but
he's
it's
like,
a,
"How dare
it's
you?
a,
That was not in the plan." Isn't that a signal of a bad thing, or like
I mean,
no?
if you see the scenes with the homeless man, you kind of have an idea that this was not entirely comedy, a film made by a lot of comedic moments, and because it's just no way
There's a
that homeless
lightness.
scenes, that are not, infused with humor like intentionally. I mean, I
Slide
can
by
see
me
that.
completely.
I mean,
Like to me, I understand it. To me, it's funny, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, a part of me is laughing, so to speak. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, but it's not the intention of the film, so I completely defeated it.
But like the homeless one is the one I'm most stuck on. How is that not supposed to be endearing at the very least, like kind of like chuckle worthy a little bit? How do you like? Because what is the other option? I don't. To you,
yeah, I
like,
mean,
what is the other option?
I mean, think about it. He comes back and he asks for money to the same person. I mean,
A bunch of
what would be
what?
on his mind
It's
as a
such a real
director to put
situation.
that if he didn't know that it would be funny?
I never. That's not. I don't know. I never laughed. That's a very real situation of a person coming back, the same person who asked you money coming back to you and you need to say no. That was the only thing that I was thinking. Well, this is a
Yeah,
very
of
real
course,
situation.
But that's why it's good, because there's like an unspoken
it's funny.
contract that you have with a homeless person, which is when I give you money, if I pass by you again, like don't ask. Come on, I did you a
Of
solid
course,
one.
yes.
Don't ask me again. And if it does, and if they do, then it's like it's funny that the movie is pointing out. I just think it's like a funny comment on a very specific dynamic, and that's recurring throughout the film. I don't know what like what the point is. Maybe I guess that could be like, what does it serve
I
narratively?
guess because I'm so lost on the points, I would say this.
Okay,
Because
fair
I'm
enough.
so lost on the points, I don't know whether to laugh or not. I think that's more the thing.
Yeah.
It's not. I cannot even start to explain what's the opposite, Thomas. If you can't laugh, I don't know. I'm on those scenes with the homeless, and the very fact that he comes back and again, and you see this shot. There's a pen to him where he is in the cemetery and looking at Isaac and crossing the street, and he's like, I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't know. What am I supposed to? I'm just like,
there is just he's always there, so he's like it's a good it's the subjectivity of him seeing. It's just a good person to a good character to use because he's always in that place. To have someone observe.
It's like the film throws me a hot potato. I don't know what to do with it. I don't
I
know
mean,
what to make of this.
It does reflect a little bit Isaac's state of mind, because I mean, when he's in the beginning, he gives him money. It's all casual, but he also stands ground. He doesn't go back, and then towards the end, I mean, he just passes by the man. He doesn't even see him, so he's clearly more distracted. I mean, I know it's very sort of a flimsy thing to express, but it still says a little bit about how Isaac is completely out of it. I mean, but yeah, it's just a small detail. I think mostly it's just for being funny.
It's like a little, it's to introduce a little lightness to it all, but also it's like those ladies, like the one com cada maluca aí, like the ones
That I thought that I understood it was a light moment with him with the homeless man. I don't know why I never understood it. I think I'm so programmed to try and find the seriousness in Manoel de Oliveira that then when the supposed so-called light moments come up, it's difficult for me to understand, especially with the theatricality on this forever sameness of tone. For me personally, it's difficult to say if he's trying to be funny or not. The ladies I was saying were the best actresses because I totally believe them. It was not theatrical at all. Like I believe the accent, although they're not actors. They're taken probably from the street or whatever.
It takes a non-actor for Tomás to believe the acting.
Yeah.
believe in the pureness.
So
the rawness of the lady.
The rawness.
I want to follow these ladies. What's going on with them?
It's their story
in that moment.
But I do think, I think theatricality. I think it's more obvious in this directing, in his shots, in the use of the shots, because he doesn't really go shot reverse shot. So it's usually like in a theater where you're seeing it from a certain angle and you go through the entire scene that way. Sometimes he kind of divides a little bit the scenes. It goes a little close, but mostly you see scenes from a certain angle and you keep them there. And I do agree that those choices do make for sort of theatrical experience, but other times not. I mean, and I was remembering now that scene with the sort of handheld camera where he's looking at the ground, and then there's a reverse shot of him taking pictures.
Yeah.
And at first, I was like, this doesn't really fit here, this shaky cam. But then somehow when he reverses to him, it just works. It puts both shots
because it complemented
perfectly
the
together.
idea.
Yeah.
And actually, as I was watching the film, I was very much reminded of a work I did for one of the modules at film school. It was to do with, well, me and Mike did it. I don't know if Leo did it, but it was about intermediality, let's say, intermedium stuff, and the idea of studying how other art forms connected with cinema and how cinema can borrow from other art forms. I studied a bit to do with sculpture and cinema because I looked at it and thought, this seems fucking difficult, let's do it. And they said, it is difficult, don't do it, the teacher. And I was like, sure, let's let's have a crack. So it was interesting to see, like, one of the first, I find very interesting how cinema can kind of like borrow other art form properties to inform itself in new ways. I've always found that idea interesting from the first time I kind of got to know it in that module. And then when I think one of the works that I got that was essays most proud of writing and kind of discovery things about was that one. You may call it the whole of it, these ideas of art and cinema, a bunch of fluff and pretentiousness, if you will. But I thought it was very interesting because, for example, in sculpture, there's the whole idea of how do you explore, and this borrowing from sculpture to film, how to explore space, the three-dimensional aspect of space, and you can find that same question in sculpture. The viewer is obliged to go around a sculpture and see how light bends around it, how the landscape changes as you rotate 360 around the sculpture, and how the same way cinema kind of mimicates that act of that property of a sculpture. One of the other things is that the more you look at a sculpture, or in this case, the more you look at a photograph, the more you feel like it's alive and it's moving. And I thought that was a very interesting idea. Certainly something that our teacher at the time would say, see, Thomas, that's sculptoric. So yes, it is sculptoric, I noticed. So, I was thinking, as I was watching the movie, I was like, this would be a perfect movie to have put in that work. Like, here we have an example of a sculptoric, that was always the word, sculptoric property in cinema. It was the fact that she was moving. The more you look at it, the more it feels like it's moving. And it's to do with the voluptuous nature of the image. We want to believe that whatever is still, that belongs to the past, that is kind of frozen in that piece of memory that could be a sculpture of a known figure in time, or an image, whether it is in photograph or cinema, that picture can return to us. So this is a bit kind of coming back to what you said in the beginning, commenting that idea. I think it's one of the most beautiful ideas in the film. That is very well achieved in that moment of the scene where he's taking pictures for Angelica for the first time. So yes, I am benevolent to the film too at times. There are things I like in it. It's just that I think when I speak, I don't hate the film. I want to kind of underline that, or I just didn't particularly connect with it, I guess. I just don't think it was like, it didn't gather all the ingredients and articulated really all the ingredients in the way that I found that it gave me a whoa. And hence me saying La Chimera at the end. When I mentioned that film did something to my brain that was just, wow, I could not unsee it. Like, it was amazing. I was like, it's that thing, when it's hard to pass by a movie when you're kind of watching films on a daily basis. It really strikes you and you are like, oh my God, I love you and I want to spend the rest of my days with you. Movie, so it's difficult. I kind of was having this conversation with you, Leo, the other day, kind of, you are at night, you're searching for a movie that really touches you, really gets your creative juices going, and it's difficult and it doesn't come by often. It's a thing of almost fate. So when that happens, you're kind of love stricken almost when you see a piece of art that really touches you. That happened with me, like with La Chimera. This movie was like, there are good things in it, great moments. It's more the articulation of it when I look at it from an overview standpoint, at the whole structure. It just felt to me like a very simplistic story maybe for some who love the film, this is sacrilegious to say, but I didn't feel like there were enough elements in the atmosphere, in the environment constructed that made me fascinated by his inner world. For example, one of the things I love about La Chimera is how you go into this.
You went
it's
full
unfair.
circle.
You went full circle. It's unfair to compare these
God
movies.
damn it, did it.
The thing, God damn it,
I
he did it again.
actually did not expect you to say that again.
Yeah, sorry. But with La Chimera, it's just the fact that, for example, I love the fact that in that movie, the tombaroli, let's say, which is a term employed to designate this group of people that actually existed in the 80s in Italy, in south of Italy, that just raided tombs of Etruscan people, like the sort of people who lived thousands of years ago, and robbed their belongings, like things that they left in their funeral and whatnot. And you really get to dig into what the world of this archaeologist played by Josh O'Connor in the movie. Wink, wink. Name drop. And come to the podcast, Josh. You really get into the atmosphere of what it is, the work, Not that is explained to you. He doesn't stop in a very conventional way and starts, this is my work, this is what I do every day. I'm starting a monologue from a film noir. That doesn't happen. But you are with him, and it's a very distant existence in your relationship with the character. It's very cold, much like here. But there's just so much detail in the people around that world of robbing these graves, raiding them, and the amount of detail that you get to explore in it, that here, the photographer aspect of it, that's one of the most beautiful things a film can do, is be specific about this environment. And somehow the world of photography, I got a little smell of it in the sense of the first scene when he's like taking photos of her and taking different angles, and I'm having these ideas of, he's relating to her like she's an object of art, but she's not an object of, he's objectifying her, and that's his service to his family. It's a very private thing, a loving thing almost, but it's very public. I'm bubbling, etc. And then I lose it. It's like the taste. I'm tasting it, and then I get cut off. I don't get anything else. And the idea of the photographer, the doing of a photographer, goes amiss on me. He leaves that. And he kind of goes back to when he photographs the farmers, but somehow the idea, the voluptuousness that was kind of there with Angelica was gone away, and that wasn't explored anymore. And then I feel like I kind of went away from the idea of the photographer's world and the level of detail that could be in it, So
just
became
on a
empty.
note,
Yeah, sure.
Just on a note, Cahiers du Cinéma said this was the 10th best film of the 2010s. So everything Tomás said up until this point is crap.
Yeah, they're a bunch of hacks.
We respect that.
They're a bunch of hacks. They're washed up.
Exactly.
No, but
so much.
Actually, the films that they chose are good.
Yeah.
But I wasn't expecting
sure.
to see Manoel de Oliveira.
Yeah, fair enough.
They liked him a lot.
But then again, it's not a film that I at all, I'm kind of making a stance here. I had instances in other, like, it's not a past lives, all right?
You prefer the 4-hour Amor de Perdição. I know.
You didn't even watch
Amor de
it.
Perdição?
You prefer for the 4 hours Amor de Perdição film.
Yeah, of course. No, not at all. I mean,
I prefer the old Manoel Oliveira, not these new films that he
not
made.
This new shtick.
Terrible.
Not what he did after he was 90. No, the 80s
no,
and
no,
70s.
He was on another level in the 70s, man. He was so cool.
I mean, Vala Brown, man. Vale Abrano. I love that.
It's when he turned 100 that it went downhill.
Yeah, it went all downhill. He sold out. He went mainstream. That's all for today. If you'd like to reach out and suggest a film for the next episode, you can find us on the podcast, official Instagram, and Facebook pages. Feel free to subscribe, share this episode, or simply give us a like. That's how our podcast can grow ever more groovy. And if you're on YouTube and want to see more videos like this, check out this next video right here. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.